Hi, everyone. I see we have a few folks in the waiting room, but we're letting everyone in right now. I'm Ruffian Tittman. I'm the Executive Director of Friends of the Wissahickon, and we are so excited to be hosting Volunteer Recognition Night 2021 here with you all tonight. Normally, if we went back in time, we'd all be gathered at the Valley Greene Inn, eating some soup and salad and maybe something else, and hearing a wonderful show from Sean Greene, which many people affectionately refer to this as the Sean Greene Show, our wonderful volunteer manager and leader of our field team with our staff and our volunteers. So before I do anything else, I want to also say a huge thank you to Sean Greene, who has kept our volunteer program moving along through challenging times and with a smile and with enthusiasm and creativity. And so a big thank you to Sean. Thank you, Sean. And I also want to introduce FOW's amazing, wonderful board president, Alyssa Edwards. We have a great staff here at Friends of the Wissahickon, and we have an awesome board as well. And Alyssa's here to offer some thoughts to all of you tonight. So thank you from me and the staff and everyone. And I'm going to turn this right on over to Alyssa Edwards, FOW's president of the board.
Well, thanks, Ruffian. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here. I got to say, I haven't heard the Sean Greene Show before, and I love it. So thank you for enlightening me. Even though we're on Zoom, where so many events are taking place these days, it's such a pleasure to be here on Volunteer Night. This has always been one of my favorite FOW events. The reason why is because you, our volunteers, along with the FOW staff, are really the engines of the work that we do at FOW. So I really want to thank everyone for his or her service this year, and really what a year or 2 years it's been. I'm sure you're all like me and have noticed that the park is just a refuge and such a special place, for so many, more than ever, including me and my family. So because of you, the park can stay clean, accessible, and definitely sustainable for generations to come. So with lots and lots of thanks and gratitude, I would like to turn our attention to this wonderful FOW video that we have to show you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here.
People love the Wissahickon Valley Park because it's their backyard or their secret garden or just their place of respite. To have such a wild landscape within an urban center is amazing. You can be on a street in a dense neighborhood, you turn a corner and all of a sudden you realize I'm in the woods. It's that feeling of instantly being transported that's so magical. You just walked around the corner from your house perhaps and all of a sudden you were away. People come to experience nature with their families. They come to seek the quiet of the forest. There's just so many opportunities for recreation in the Wissahickon Valley Park.
There's something right up there. It's going to be in these smaller songbirds, let's see. I came to the Wissahickon with my parents when I was younger. Now that I have my own child, I enjoy bringing her here and doing the same things.
I like being in nature a lot. It's really cool how you get to see different birds.
Both the meadows are great for migrating birds, for food, for shelter.
The Friends of Wissahickon really understand this moral imperative that they have to care for this space and to not just care for it today, but to truly preserve it for future generations.
We have thousands and thousands of volunteers that come out and put in tens of thousands of volunteer hours every year. And if it wasn't for that, there's no way we could accomplish what we do. And there's no way the Wissahickon would look like it does today.
So there is a section of the trail that we're going to try and rebuild a little bit.
The foundation of FOW's work has really been stewardship through volunteer service. How do we translate that to our younger generation?
When I do the volunteer work, it feels really rewarding. It takes all those small steps to achieve the goal of helping the entire world. people that are truly interested in helping alleviate climate change can take their first steps here.
The Friends of the Wissahickon was founded with the mission to conserve the natural beauty and wildness of the Wissahickon Valley and stimulate public interest. That mission remains true today as we steward the trails, care for the natural habitat of our forest, and protect our creek, all while engaging the public in that stewardship work.
All right, let's keep going.
And now on with the show. I have seen that video before and I absolutely love it. It's so beautifully done. So now I'd like to hand it over to Sean Greene. He's our volunteer manager. Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you so much, Alyssa. Yeah, and on with the Sean Greene show. I don't know if I like that nickname, but yeah. So that video is kind of a tough act to follow, isn't it? But I've got some cool stuff for you guys. So kind of can't really talk about this year without kind of addressing the elephant in the room, which is that 2021 was a worthy sequel to 2020. It was another year of oddities, kind of between Capitol riots and hurricanes and fires and a pandemic that just won't seem to quit. Kind of an especially frigid winter followed by an especially hot and humid summer. It's just been kind of an exhausting year. And in many ways, it kind of feels like the world is still very divided. I mean, obviously, quite literally, because we're not together tonight. Well, we're together through Zoom, but that's a little bit different than how things used to be. But I can say that there's one place where it doesn't feel divided, and that is in Wissahickon Valley Park. So this year has also been a year to regroup. And we've seen a resurgence in volunteers, which has really been kind of fantastic. We're able to slowly kind of return to a semblance of normality after the bizarro 2020 year that we had. So we've had increased service days. We're able to bring back our guided walks and talks, and we've gotten a lot of amazing work done in the Wissahickon in spite of all the challenges that we've had. And none of this would have been possible without you, the volunteers. I've said this like many times before, and I'll always say it, you guys are the heart and soul of this park, and we're so proud and so grateful of the work that you have accomplished this year. So this is our annual program. If you've never been to it before, obviously it's virtual this year, but it's my favorite program of the year because we get to really highlight everything that we've done. So I invite you guys to join me on a little hike in the park, which is my favorite place in Philly. I'm sure it's probably a favorite place for many of you guys. And so we're gonna start in the far north. We're gonna make our way south. We're gonna stop and see a few things along the way. And we may have some special guest hikers that we'll run into and bombard with questions. So let's get this thing started. And our very first stop of the night is gonna be Harper's Meadow, which is on the far northern section of the park, right on the boundary of Philadelphia. And we've done a lot of work here this year, including planting 200 trees and shrubs, 200 plugs, so pollinator plants, removing 4,500 square feet of invasive plants from the area. We also created a pathway that goes back to Dewey's Rock. And if you've never heard of Dewey's Rock or are wondering what on earth that is, well, you can learn about that on our Trails to the Past page, which I will talk about a little bit later in this program. So kind of spoiler alert there. But we've done a lot of work there. We did a lot of work here on Saturdays. And Saturday service days have kind of been the backbone of our volunteer work for many years. And so this year we were able to do 37 service days. 37 and growing because, you know, the year's not done yet. And all of these were co-led by our volunteer crew leaders who are trained to lead volunteers and assisted by our volunteer trail ambassadors. We couldn't do any of these things without either, especially the crew leaders, being that sometimes we have volunteers coming out on Saturdays anywhere between 15 and 60 people. So being able to have trained people on the ground to kind of split up into groups makes it much easier. But we visited a lot of locations on Saturdays, including Bells Mill Road, Clifford Park. I'm not going to read through this whole list, but we've done a lot of work on Saturdays. So if you came out and joined us on some of those Saturday service days, we really appreciate it. And so we're going to continue on our hike. We're going to head west a little bit to one of my favorite places in the park, which is the Andorra Natural Area, home of Andorra Meadow and a few other things that we may see. But up in Andorra Meadow, if you've gone hiking there, you may have noticed that we have a lot of habitat boxes. And this year, we were able to get back to monitoring the bird boxes. There are 40 boxes in Andorra. There's 19 boxes in Houston. Actually, several of them were actually built and installed by an Eagle Scout last year, which was pretty impressive. So we had 17 volunteers who did 75 monitoring sessions in both meadows. And a large reason for this is to kind of really check on how the habitat is doing in both of these meadows. The one bird species that we're especially interested in seeing a resurgence of are the eastern bluebirds. They are an indicator species that kind of tells us how healthy a meadow is doing. So I went through all the data and was able to confirm that we had 8 eastern bluebirds fledged, also 53 house swallows, 5 Carolina chickadees. All of those are native species. And I'll just kind of gloss over the fact that there were 86 house wrens, which are maybe not the nicest bird species, but they were there. And somebody else that was there was Caitlin Evans, who is our first special guest for the evening. Caitlin is a crew leader and also a habitat box monitor. Caitlin, are you with us?
I'm here, Sean. Hey, everyone. I'm Caitlin.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. Tell us about what you found out there. What were some of the most interesting things that you found in your monitoring sessions?
So one of the coolest things was just, watching the progression of the nest, starting from these like perfect little eggs to these, kind of scary looking naked little birds. And then developing into these like beautiful little baby birds, like fully feathered, ready to fledge. Just getting to see that progression. It was really cool and getting to see it up close. And then another day towards the end of the season, maybe in August, I went out to the meadow after work one day, and it was just full of dragonflies. There must have been hundreds, thousands of dragonflies all just flying around. And the sky was tons of tree swallows, and there's just so much life and so much activity. And, I'd never seen anything like that out there before. And, there's always something different to see every time you go out there. So it's, just cool to get to spend a lot of time out there.
That's great. Yeah, definitely those young baby birds are cute and also really ugly and weird looking. Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for taking part in this, and thank you for joining us tonight. Before we part ways, I just want to say one more time, congratulations to both of you guys. So you have Bill on, this is sort of volunteer adjacent, but Caitlin and Bill got married this year. They're also crew leaders. They met in our crew leader training in 2019, and they tied the knot this September. And so here's the FOW, the FOW family photo. So thank you guys for including us in it.
Thank you guys.
Yeah.
And Sean, you do weddings, right?
For a fee, yes, I do. Yeah, so I did officiate this wedding. So
special volunteer perk.
Yeah. So come out, be a crew leader. Maybe you'll fall in love. Maybe I'll marry you. Who knows? So thank you, Caitlin. Thank you, Bill. And we are gonna continue on our hike. First, we're gonna swing by and just kind of wave a howdy do at the Wissahickon Environmental Center. As I'm sure most of you know the folks there. Stephanie Hoffer actually just started this year, joining Christina and Verlin all of them are incredibly supportive and fantastic partners of FOW and do a lot of fantastic work in the Wissahickon. And we're so grateful to have them as Wissahickon besties, as well as Tommy, the treehouse cat, who is adorable. And leaving us this year was actually Trish, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with Trish. If not, she was the environmental education specialist at the Treehouse for 18 years, and among other things, developed and ran the Treehouse Adventure Camp and the Out and About Camp, both of which were incredibly popular. And I'd like to say that she will be missed, but I feel like I see her more now than when she worked there. So I'm hoping to recruit her as a trail ambassador or something. So Trish, if you're listening to this, give me a call and we'll hook you up. So we're going to make our way down to Forbidden Drive. We don't have time to stop and eat, but we're going to pass by the Cedar's House Cafe, which is a great place for smoothies and a great place to pick up a Wissahickon cleanup kit. And if you don't know what that is, well, hold on a second, because we're about to get to it. So our next stop is Bells Mill Road, and we're about to get a little bit trashy here and kind of talk about litter in the park. This picture was actually taken of our Bells Mill cleanup earlier this year, where we were allowed to close the entire road, which was really, really awesome to be able to walk down it and clean it up, do a thorough cleaning. As many of you know, this is kind of the one road that goes completely through the park and crosses Forbidden Drive, and also accrues a lot of trash, unfortunately. So we've done a lot of work there. And also at Bells Mill, I can't help but kind of give a shout out to this, because Halloween is my favorite holiday. And we ran our second annual Trick or Trash event, which was a cleanup throughout the park. Bells Mill was one of the locations, as well as Valley Greene and historic Rittenhouse Town. People were encouraged to come out in costume. This was a self-led cleanup, and so we had 45 people, many of which in costume, and together they removed about 400 pounds of litter from the park, which is pretty awesome. This will be a tradition we will continue, because Halloween's awesome. But we were able to kind of do this because we had already kind of set the stage for self-led cleanups through our Wissa Heroes program. And if you haven't heard of that, that is kind of a program we started last year, kind of necessitated by the pandemic and our, the early part of the pandemic, when we really weren't running service days and kind of gathering together, finding a way for people to steward the park on their own safely from a distance. And we saw no reason to end it, because it allows people to go out and pick up trash and steward the park on their own time whenever they wanted to. And so this year we had 275 volunteers doing 118 shifts, cleanup shifts, sometimes as individuals, sometimes as groups of people, and together removing over 5,000 pounds of litter from the park, from the creek, from the forests, from the sides of the road. And this has just been really, really fantastic. And we're actually joined tonight by a Wissa hero, Melissa Orner, who this year did 8 sessions and removed about 200 pounds of trash from the park. Melissa, are you there?
I'm here. Hello,
awesome.
Everyone.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And thank you so much for taking part in an individual stewardship of the park.
Thanks for inviting me. Those 8 shifts were really just a small amount of the, probably at least 20 times that, because those are the only ones I logged on your site. I do litter pickups. I'm kind of a freelance Friends of the Wissahickon volunteer. I go out at least once a week and pick up litter.
Well, don't do it freelance. Let us know, because we definitely want to know how much trash, where, and also logging your hours.
I'll get better about that, about the recording part.
So what made you decide to go out and clean trash on your own?
I think probably when I thought about the origins, it might be back at Bradley Mall's One Man's Trash exhibit at the Waterworks. Probably planted the seed for me. and using the Wissahickon as my gym. Every week I took a jog and started picking up litter after when I was stretching, and then kind of morphed during the pandemic into that is what I do. I call it litter aerobics, and I pick up litter and I get exercise at the same time. So there's some picking up trash and some little bit of jogging and a lot of getting thank yous from other people and asking if I'm with the Friends of the Wissahickon. And starting today, I'm going to say yes.
Yes, please do, and tell them if they want to clean up trash, no one's stopping them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so,
I've had many people, say, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Why don't I do that?" I was like, "Yeah, you should."
Yeah, if not you, then who? Right?
Exactly.
So one of the things that I mean, if there's something to enjoy in cleaning up trash, it's that you never know what you're going to find out in the Wissahickon, and I've found a lot of bizarre things. So I just want to know, what's the strangest thing you found out in the Wissahickon while doing a cleanup?
I think the strangest thing is, and I'm not sure this is what it is, that's still an open question, but it looked like a conductor's baton. And no idea how that would possibly get in the Wissahickon. I had friends speculate on Instagram because sometimes I post the weird things I find, and a friend speculated that a frustrated conductor went and just threw it in the water, and another friend speculated it was a riding crop, but I don't think it is. And so yeah, how'd that get there? And I also regret not.
There's so many that we should probably write a story.
Totally.
All the weird things that we find. Well, thank you so much for all the work that you've done, and thank you for joining us tonight, Melissa.
My pleasure. I appreciate all your work.
Sure.
Thank you, Melissa, for the shout out, by the way. It's awesome.
Oh yeah, spoiler alert, Brad Mull's on this, but everybody forget that, because I want you all to be surprised later in the program when I unveil him. All right, so we're gonna move on down Forbidden Drive, the 2018 Trail of the Year, as you all know, and really the most popular pathway in the park. And along the way, we are going to run into our Structures crew, which is the longest running volunteer corps at FOW. They didn't work much last year because of the pandemic, and they returned back to the park this spring. There's a group of guys that meets every Tuesday morning to do work in the park, so that means they were out there this morning. I saw them on my way to and from leading other volunteers. So these guys have done quite a bit of work, not limited to these three things, but they recently rebuilt the stage decking at the Wissahickon Environmental Center. They've replaced over 100 rails and 10 posts along Forbidden Drive. So if you're ever walking along Forbidden Drive and wondering who it is that fixes those broken fences, it's the Structures crew. And lucky for us, all of us, Parks and Recreation just provided us with a new shipment of fence rails. So that will continue. They also did a lot of work in Valley Greene, doing a lot of post-hurricane cleanups, making repairs to car stops by the inn, the swing gate, repairing the fencing in front of the inn where all those beautiful weddings take place. That whole area was flooded during the hurricane, so there was a lot of work to be done. So they jumped right into action. They also fixed that beautiful chess table down by the inn, and among many other things. So they're a great group of guys. I'm very grateful that they continue to come out and show so much love to the park. This year, unfortunately, we did have to say goodbye to one member of the Structures crew. Richard Berman passed away this year. He was a wonderful friend of the Wissahickon. He served on the board of directors from 2003 to 2013. He was also secretary for 9 years on various committees, including conservation, wildlife, and outreach. He co-developed the FOW, the FOW's map of the Wissahickon, and of course was a long-standing member of the Structures crew. He was a really, really wonderful guy, great sense of humor. He was just loved by so many people. And he's going to be very, very missed this year. He's going to be very missed forever now. But keeping things going, Our next stop is going to be Houston Meadow, the other meadow, just as beautiful as Andorra. And you may be wondering what this is, because this does not look like a meadow. This is actually the wooded ravine in between the two parts of the meadow, where we did quite a bit of work this fall with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation on a huge planting. We put in over 600 trees and shrubs of 36 species. I hope I'm getting that right, with almost 500 volunteer hours. This was done kind of over the course of a month. And I'm kind of sad that it's done, because I love plantings. I love this location. But this was done in, as I said, in partnership with Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. They, this was basically their project. They did all the difficult work of procuring the trees and bringing in the water. And we just got to do the fun stuff of providing volunteers and planting. And so we are joined tonight actually by John Jensen, who is the natural land specialist with Parks and Recreation. He was also previously a crew leader with Friends of the Wissahickon. John, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for meeting me along the trail here, Sean.
Sure. I wasn't expecting to run into you. All these other hikers I'm really surprised by. So it's a good thing that I just happen to be running into these other people that know so much about the things I'm talking about. So tell us a little bit about what we planted and why we planted it in this specific area.
Well, this was an area that had some large trees that had fallen in the past, creating some gaps in the forest canopy, which allowed invasive plants to start taking hold, such as cork, Hercules club, multiflora rose, wineberry, exotic honeysuckle, exotic bittersweet, and Parks and Rec over the past few years had been controlling those invasive plants, removing them and preparing the site for planting. This year, we had the wonderful opportunity to team up with Friends of the Wissahickon, the Fairmount Park Conservancy, and the state-funded Tree Vitalize watershed protection program to plant these 600 trees and shrubs. Some of the cool stuff that we got to plant were 7 different species of oaks, 8 different species of edible fruit, including a huge pawpaw grove that runs the length of the ravine stream, 3 different hickories and hazelnuts, and even a Pennsylvania endangered plant named the common hop tree, Tilia trifoliata, which is probably extirpated from Philadelphia before being replanted here in the Houston Ravine. So this is a great opportunity to get rid of those invasive plants, put in all of these native plants at a really good density so that they can hopefully seal those canopy gaps back up and exclude those invasive plants from continuing their reign of terror in there. And hopefully all of those native plants will help increase the biodiversity and make that an amazing spot to visit, in addition to those wonderful meadows on either side.
Yeah, awesome. And so how long do we have to wait till the pawpaw fruit is ready?
Good question. We might get lucky and maybe in 2 years, but
that's it. Actually sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
Well, I'm eager to try it again because I wasn't that crazy about it the first time. So, but maybe it's I'll have to eat a bunch. And is it an acquired taste?
I can eat 1 a year off the tree, but this year we made a pawpaw pie, and that's the secret, is turn it into something else.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for reaching out to us. And I look forward to doing some more plantings with you guys in the future.
Thanks for all your support. We couldn't have done it without you and all these awesome volunteers. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John. And so we are going to leave Houston Meadow and head on down the Yellow Trail where, there's some down trees. So speaking of, we just planted a whole lot of trees, but you know what happens in, 50 to 100 to 200 years once they get big and maybe have to deal with some high winds and erosion. They come down and a lot of them land on our trails. So we have been working this year, as we always do, clearing trees from the natural surface trails. This year we did over 50 trees cut back. And we did this with a small group of crew leaders. There were 8 volunteers that worked with us. And a huge shout out to Joe Caesar and his crew from Philadelphia Parks and Recreation, who we've partnered with to take care of this. Everybody cross your fingers that we don't have too brutal of a winter, because I would prefer to not have to clear as many as we do. And so we're going to continue down to Forbidden Drive to the very popular and beautiful Magi Dam, where this cute little relic just kind of magically showed up this year. If you haven't seen it before, make sure you stop and take a look. Obviously, this was not magic that provided it to us. It was actually our partners at the Fairmount Park Conservancy who refurbished it, painted it, and plopped it in its place. And this was also staffed by seasonal park rangers through Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. And Magi Dam was also the site of our Leave No Trace Hotspot Weekend, which was a beautiful weekend. We had perfect weather, and it was a whole lot of fun. Hopefully some of you guys in the audience attended. So if you're unfamiliar, we were named a hotspot by the Leave No Trace Center for Outdoor Ethics, which basically means we got free training and free support. We were visited by 2 traveling educators for a 5-day long weekend of events and service projects and more. And this kind of helped to kind of validate our past efforts and really is helping us to refine our future Leave No Trace efforts. As much as I love talking about cleaning trash, we're hoping to find less trash in the park. So that's going to start with a lot of educational programming. But I really want to call attention, huge thanks to Brad Mall, Lisa Stout, and Matt Kokoska for leading guided hikes of different topics that all still tied together to Leave No Trace. And we had of course, the volunteer cleanup in the greater Valley Green area, as I like to call it. We had 47 volunteers that day, removing just under 1,000 pounds of litter. I'd like to give a huge shout out to Let's Go Outdoors for also coming out and joining us and leading a kids watershed program for that day. And then we're going to go downstream just a little bit to the cozy and delicious Valley Green Inn, where we're going to stop and say hello to some trail ambassadors. In case you are unfamiliar, trail ambassadors are the outreach wing of our volunteer corps, who engage the public on trails, at outreach tables, and other events by giving directions, suggested hikes, information about the park, and so much more. And this year, we had 237 trail and outreach shifts with over 600 volunteer hours. And this is just based on the field reports that they filled out. So FYI, we do read them. Roughly about 800 park users engaged with meaningful conversations, which is really, really fantastic. Also like to give a shout out to Ted Apple, Jim Sharnock, and Greg Zero for staffing a lot of outreach tables at Valley Green Inn. And another shout out I'd like to give is to Amy Uter, who is our next special guest. Amy joined us last year as a trail ambassador, and this year she's done over 250 volunteer hours in a wide variety of areas, including leading school groups on field trips, doing trail shifts, guided hikes, and attending volunteer service days. So how are you doing, Amy?
I'm fine, thanks, Sean. Thanks for that shout out. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd talk at Valley Green Inn about the bike patrol I was a part of. I like to call it the COVID cycling patrol. And that was with Greg Zarrow, who you just mentioned, and also Kate Charles. And we used to go along the Forbidden Drive and hand out trash bags and teach people about the dangers of swimming. We also practiced our role playing on how to talk best to people. Some people weren't as happy during COVID, so you had to approach them with care and love. So
always have
one
to be reflective or reflexive when talking to a wide variety of people.
Right. So we used to practice. Greg would say to me, why don't you try saying it this way? So we would like see how that worked, you know, try different approaches. But one time we joined together, we would meet up at Valley Green Inn, and we got a call from our friend Greg, and Greg said, I have a down biker. And he brought this woman and we cleaned her up and we worked together to get her bike and her back to her car. So
when you say down, she fell down off the bike?
Yes. So that was one memory I have of our patrol days, but just we met lots of people, and we really became known in the park from doing that patrol, of people waving and saying thank you. And it was really nice experience for us.
Well, it's great to have a friendly neighborhood trail ambassador when you fall off a bike or are lost on a trail or are looking for suggestions on where to go.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much for your service, Amy. Always great to see you.
Thank you.
And so we are going to move on our hike, and we are going to cross to the other side of the creek and visit the fantastic Fingerspan Bridge, which is a marvel of form and function, and also a terror to dogs. If you have a dog and have ever tried to walk them over the Fingerspan Bridge, you know that it doesn't go well. You usually have to pick them up and carry them. Real quick, I kind of want to point out at the bottom of the steps here, these Looney Tunes, aka crew leaders, who have like we went out one day to move a lot of rocks to kind of rebuild the tread of the trail at the bottom of the creek, or at the bottom of the steps, which tends to get pretty muddy. And so this is a work in progress. We got a lot of good work done there, and we look forward to going back and continuing this work. But the main thing I want to talk about at the Fingerspan Bridge is actually our Trails to the Past page, which is available on the virtual valley. In case you're unfamiliar, this is located on our website, and it's a collection of historical articles and games and videos and stories and art and a whole lot more. But we've really kept the spirit of the Trails to the Past page going with a very small group of resident history buffs, which are primarily trail ambassadors. We meet pretty much once a month, and each month somebody has written an article on a point of interest in the park. We review it, offer suggestions, and then we post them onto the website. So if you haven't checked it out, please do. This year, volunteers wrote 13 different articles on different areas of the park. One of them being the Dewey Rock that I had mentioned earlier, located at Harper's Meadow. But also you can read Brad Mall's fantastic article on the Fingerspan Bridge. And I think you guys already knew this, but Brad is joining us right now. Brad, how are you doing?
I am well, Sean. Thank you.
It was supposed to be a surprise that you were here.
Why? I'm a volunteer.
I don't know. I feel like you're sort of a local celebrity. So, and everyone would be like, wow, how'd they get Brad to be on this?
I am a volunteer crew leader, class of 2016. What up to Lisa Stout and all of my fellow crew leaders?
Yes, so Brad is a crew leader. He also runs our Instagram page. As I said, he's also a local celebrity and an all-around great guy. He's an all-around okay guy.
I'll take okay. Thank you, Sean.
So, you know, the Wissahickon is just kind of like filled with histories. In some locations, it's history on top of history on top of some more history. And in the future, there's going to be even more history on top of that. So why is it so important for us to kind of share this historical context of the park with the wider community?
Well, I mean, you said it right there. I mean, it's historical context. It's interesting to consider why this park looks the way that it does, you know, from the water and geology to the built structures like Fingerspan, like the Henry Avenue Bridge, and also consider the people who were here before us that, you know, kind of in some cases literally blazed the trail for us, or laid the groundwork, you know, from the Lenape original people who gave us the name Wissahickon and were the original stewards of the land through to the Fairmount Park Commission, looking to the future to protect the water supply of the city, and create this amazing space for us. And, throughout 50 miles of trails and 1,800 acres, there are just amazing natural sites like Devil's Pool and, statues like the toleration statue, which is in fact William Penn. There will be a Trails to the Past story with the proof of that, but spoiler alert, it is Billy Penn.
Well, that's a whole lot of spoiler alerts going on. But in case anybody hasn't read it, leave us a little juicy tidbit on what is your favorite fun fact about the Fingerspan Bridge? Do you have a favorite?
Well, to pick one, I just think that Jodi Pinto is she's an incredible artist, and she has such an amazing story that her personal family story and her work of art kind of speaks to like immigration to America and functional like the Fingerspan, like you mentioned, is form and function. As is the land buoy sculpture that she designed at Pier 53, Washington Avenue Pier in South Philly, and to kind of dive into her story and why these things have the stories that they do, I think is really fascinating.
Well, thank you, Brad. And for anybody who hasn't read it, you can read all about the Fingerspan Bridge. And many, many other articles on points of interest in the park on the Trails to the Past page. Thank you, Brad. We'll see you on the trails later.
All right, see you there.
So we are going to move on. We're going to grow wings and kind of fly across to a location that probably many of you have not been to, which is the FOW Workshop, which is located behind the Philadelphia Parks and Recreation District 4 Maintenance Yard. And want to give a huge shout out to the Parks and Rec maintenance staff who do a lot of work in the park, and they're always a pleasure to work with. But the main thing I want to kind of point out at this location is we have a drainage pond that we have turned into a pollinator habitat. So this year, we planted 500 plugs of all pollinator plants. I'll kind of talk about what those are in a moment. But before we planted, we had to remove a lot of invasive plant species. So we kind of did this whole project with two different volunteer groups. The first one was the Pennsylvania Master Naturalists came out as a group and worked with us in late winter, early spring, cutting back invasive plants. And then several weeks later, the Master Watershed Stewards from through Penn State Extension came out and joined us in the actual planting. So this is I kind of like to point this out because it's kind of a little bit of a microcosm of the work that we do at FOW. Sometimes we're passing the baton from one day to another, or a week, or a year. But in many ways, we're passing the baton or passing the torch from generation to generation. So you can kind of see this in small scale from start to finish of this project. And then I did take this picture of a monarch caterpillar. So we are attracting some good things to this little pond. But some of the things that we planted were asters, goldenrod, milkweed, and a lot of other great plants. But we're going to leave here and head down the yellow trail, and we're going to stop at Gorgas Run. And yes, I did steal this image from HBO, so hopefully nobody from HBO is on this show and will on this program and will sue us. But this was a location that was featured in HBO's The Mayor of Easttown. If you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend checking it out. But a lot of scenes were filmed in the Wissahickon, including at Gorgas Run. But we're not going to get into spoilers or anything. So we're going to move on to something else that was at Gorgas Run, which are 3 different footbridges that were rebuilt this year with volunteer power from the 201st Red Horse Squadron, which is a mobile civil engineering response force for the Air Force. A couple of guys that were in that squadron were also big fans of the Wissahickon and reached out to us about potentially doing some projects. So having some skilled labor, especially during the pandemic, was really pretty excellent. So we coordinated with them, and they rebuilt three different footbridges right at Gorgas Run. And we're going to head down this road back to Forbidden Drive to Mount Airy Avenue, the Mount Airy Avenue Bridge, which was also featured in the Mayor of Easttown, as was Magi Dam. But I swear this is not a commercial for HBO, but it is really cool to see these places featured in a TV show. But located at the Mount Airy Avenue Bridge is a whole lot of green. So the question I have is, what's under all that green? And the answer is a spring house. So this was something that we did on a Tuesday volunteer service day, just a small group of 3 guys and myself. I remember this being one of the hottest days of the year, mostly just very, very humid. But we hung out here and we cut back all of that overgrowth. I'm going to just skip back so you can kind of see the magic work. This is an old spring house. There's a horse trough off to the right. All the walls and everything were just overgrown. And so we opened it up, and now you can actually see it. And it was really interesting at the end of that work day. People that had passed us earlier were coming back, and they stopped and were like, "What is that? I've never seen that before." So kudos to those guys for opening it up. But Tuesday was just one of the many volunteer service days that we run on weekdays. We run them on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And this sort of picked up towards the end of last year in response to just needing to spread out more and do more work in smaller groups during the pandemic. And it just kind of stuck. So this year we've done over 100 weekday volunteer service days, which are kind of what I like to say, the potpourri of everything that we do. A lot of the, the nitty gritty potpourri items like cleaning out drains, cleaning up litter, planning site maintenance, trail work, invasive removal, graffiti removal, kind of everything that you can think of. We're doing with relatively smaller groups on weekdays. And we've had quite a few people that come out very regularly. So I want to give them a shout out to these folks who have really stepped up to the plate and have come out many, many times throughout the year. One of which in particular is Alan Hong, who is joining us tonight. Alan is one of the most active volunteers that we've had this year. He attended many Tuesdays and Wednesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays throughout the whole year in all seasons, in all temperatures. So Alan, how are you doing tonight?
Great, how are you?
Pretty good. Alan was also a star of the video that we saw earlier. So thank you for reprising your role as a volunteer tonight. You were, like I said, very, very active this year. So what encouraged you to come out and put in so much effort into the park?
So my first time in the park, I noticed immediately that the community was really welcoming. They were all excited to do work, and I was really motivated to do my part. That day, I saw the state of the area we were going to clean. There was construction material, yard debris, and trash littering the bottom of a hill we were working on. And I realized the importance of the work we did, as the park is an important habitat and many enjoy the park and its recreational activities. After we were done, I saw a clear change in the area we cleaned. And I remember I was really happy to actively make a difference. I didn't regularly see many volunteers my age, so I always tried to attend sessions with my friends. I also went on one of the history hikes led by Brad Mall, where I learned about the paper mills in the past that released waste that used to pollute the water. The fact that the park is also a source of clean water reaffirmed my commitment to working there. Over many sessions, I realized that many of the FOW's values aligned with my values, like the leave no trace principles. And so all of these experiences contributed to very rewarding and fun times.
Awesome. The last thing you mentioned is also very important. I'm glad that you had a good time and that you brought your friends out. I've worked quite a few work days with you and your your crew, your crew of goofballs. Yeah, always a great time working with you. So thank you so much for all the work you've put in, Alan, and thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. All right, so we are going to move on, and we're going to stop at Monastery Stables, which is one of 3 public horse stables in the park. And we did quite a bit of work around here this year. Not only was there a trail reroute built that we supported with volunteers and machinery. This was over 1,000 feet of new trail built in the back part, like kind of connecting the white trail. So if you haven't seen it yet, go back and check out the new trail reroute. But in addition to that, we also were there several times removing invasive vines from around the horse turnouts on the edges of the forest and around the historic mansion. About 4,000 square feet of invasives were removed here with a corporate group. And also we were back there for our Fall Love Your Park Day. It's a beautiful place to visit. So stop by, check out the new trail reroute. And our next stop is on the Orange Trail, where we are going to run into the crew leaders again. I mentioned them quite a few times already. They do a lot of work for not a huge core of volunteers, putting in almost 1,800 volunteer hours this year, and co-leading all of our volunteer service days, especially our larger Saturdays, are hugely helpful. These are also the guys that maintain our tools. And every month we go out and work with them on a different project throughout the park. And so we've kind of bounced around to adopt a lot of different locations and have done a lot of work. And we're really excited about some really fun projects that we have lined up for next year. But something else that they do is what we call zone work. We kind of internally have the park split up into smaller zones, and with a goal to have crew leaders assigned to a zone for the year to do different trail improvement projects, corridor clearing, sightline clearing, assessing damages, removing debris from the trails, all sorts of stuff. And so we've had quite a few volunteers that have been out on the trails doing that. About just under 6 miles of trails were improved by our volunteer crew leaders this year. And 2 of them are joining us, Lisa Myers and Aaron Alainer. Aaron, did I just butcher your last name?
No, you got it. That's actually.
Oh, really? Okay, good. Yeah. I feel like that's the first time I've actually spoken it out loud. So I'm glad it came out correctly. So Lisa and Aaron, you guys tag teamed a section of the trails in the Wissahickon in one small, or I guess small is kind of relative, one section of the park. So tell us about some of the work that you guys did.
Yeah, I'd use the opposite of small, actually. I think we took on one of the largest and most rugged parts of the park.
Well, I'm sorry about that.
Lisa and I were the zone stewards, and I guess are the zone stewards of, I guess, the east side of the park between HRT and the Mount Airy Bridge. So big stretches of the white and orange trail, including where the toleration statue is. So it was, it was a lot, but I think it was a good experience in us kind of micro-targeting little projects that we could achieve in such a really large area. So Lisa and I kind of went around and found like little sort of impact things we could do in one day chunks, and went from there.
Nice.
Yeah, one day on one of our walks out there, we were by the Walnut Lane Bridge, and we actually almost saw an accident of a cyclist coming around the bend and almost running into a hiker. So there it was right there. There was a project. So since then, the south side of the, I guess you call it the south side of the Walnut Lane Bridge, it's around that curve, we cleared out all that vegetation and have tried to keep that cut back to create a larger sight line so people aren't, crashing into each other.
Well, I guess if you sit and wait long enough, something will happen.
Yeah, so
that
project was basically handed to us, just what we observed. So it's like, all right, here's where we start. And then, as Aaron said, it's such a large area that we just kind of focused on small projects. And I know that there's a connector trail between the white and orange trail. It has steps and it was all overgrown. So we, tried to clear that out.
Awesome.
So,
well, did you guys have fun?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
If anyone hasn't
That's
worked
going to be
with,
my new question for everybody. Is like, did you have fun?
For sure. If folks haven't gotten a chance to work with Lisa yet, she's had a wealth of knowledge about the park and naturalism. I really recommend it. You'll learn a lot working with
her. Oh yeah, Lisa is a trail ambassador, career leader, and a Pennsylvania master naturalist. And she's also my backpacking buddy. So, well, thank you guys so much for all the work you did and for joining us this evening and providing your insight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron.
So we are going to jump back to the other side of the park now and visit Thomas Mansion. I believe we might be getting a little bit of snow, so just an FYI, I don't think it's going to be enough for sledding, but this is a great hill to go sledding off of Wissahickon Avenue, Thomas Mansion. And we did our annual Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service, which was actually kind of, I think, the biggest turnout that we had. Which was surprising for dead of winter, but over 60 volunteers, and we removed over 200 bags of invasives from our native trees throughout the forest and along the fence line. So it's a lot prettier. And I kind of can't talk about Thomas Mansion without also mentioning David Bauer and giving a huge shout out. He was also in the video in our pre-show entertainment. So if you are unfamiliar with David, he is a fixture of the Wissahickon. He is as much a staple of the Wissahickon as the creek is, as I think. And he leads volunteer service days on every Wednesday, pretty much. He's led over 40 this year so far. Last year, he kind of stuck mostly to Thomas Mansion, historic Rittenhouse town. This year, he's kind of expanding his scope and visiting a whole lot of other places. So he was also our volunteer of the year in 2019, and always want to give a huge shout out to David Bauer because he does so much fantastic work. He's also a wealth of knowledge. He'll be working tomorrow, so if anybody's on this Zoom tonight and you're going tomorrow, and please definitely say hello. Our next stop is going to be Bluebell Park Hill. Oh, look, there's Lisa on the Ditch Witch again. But Bluebell Park was actually a spot that we met a couple school groups. Last year, we didn't have any due to the pandemic. This year, we've worked with 3 different schools, actually 3 groups from the Episcopal Academy, 1 group from Baldwin School, and we've also done quite a bit of work with the Saul High School in Roxborough. Again, doing what I like to call the potpourri of our stewardship work, removing litter, cleaning out stormwater infrastructure, planting trees, basically everything that you can think of. And we did it with a lot of young, smiling, happy faces, and they were happy to get dirty, and always a lot of fun to work with them. I do want to kind of call some extra attention to the Saul School, who we've worked with on a lot of Fridays this fall. There's a class that we've been working with, basically providing some hands-on training for natural resource management. So they've been coming out and joining us in the park and in the area around the FOW workshop, learning about tools and a whole variety of projects that we've been working with and working with them on. And it's been a total blast. But we are going to continue down the trail, down to Hermit's Cave, where we have a glimpse of the woman in the wilderness. And this is also a location where quite a few trail ambassadors have led guided walks and talks this year. Again, last year we didn't really have any, starting in March once the pandemic hit, and we were able to pick them up this year starting in June. So we've actually had 33 walks and talks this year since June, with just under 500 attendees. So that's a lot of people engaged in learning about the park, and a whole variety of topics, from history to drawing to geology, kind of anything you can think of within the park. There's trail ambassadors leading themed hikes on that. And we are joined actually by one of these trail ambassadors. Again, this is, I'm going to introduce her as the woman in the wilderness, aka Saufa, who is a longtime trail ambassador and led several walks this year, including her return to her popular Moth Night, Horses in History, Beneficial Plants of the Wissahickon, and the popular Halloween hike to Hermit's Cave. So it's a lot, and you did all these in partnership with other trail ambassadors, with folks from Parks and Recreation, and a lot of other great partners. So how are you doing, Chris?
I'm doing great, Sean, and thank you for having me. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us this evening, and for all the amazing work that you do. Got a question for you. So what do you like best about leading hikes in the park, or leading these guided walks and talks?
Well, that's a hard question. I like everything about it. Like
if you had to pick one thing.
Well, I guess I like enrolling the public. People come to the park, and I like, especially the city taxpayers, I like to show them the creek and say, this is your drinking water, and all this park is your land. And if you join the Friends of the Wissahickon, you can use a chainsaw, you can learn about geology, you can give a talk like this, you can be trained as a trail ambassador, and you can be with your nature people. So in all the different hikes and mentoring that I do with the different trail ambassadors, I know that especially you, Sean, are open to almost any idea that someone brings. How about a guided hike about silent meditation at night with the moonrise sun thing? You're like, yes. How about a thing that's, we have the wild women of the Wissahickon, people in costume haunting the cave? You're saying yes. And then we talk about,
I'm always going to say anything relating to Halloween. So
you do like haunting.
But I think variety is the spice of life, and it's great to have a variety of topics, because there's so many reasons people come to the park, and there's so many things to learn about in the park. Like the options are kind of endless.
They are endless. And also I like, reminding folks that, this park needs to be taken care of, and join the FOW, get involved, pick up a shovel, or do whatever you want to do to help us. So I'm proud of the TAs. Recently, as you know, we made a law to protect the park, a Healthy Outdoor Public Spaces law. So some of us worked on the side to protect the water and the land, and we're very proud of that. But, we bring people to the park, they're learning about Leave No Trace. The park is the heaviest used park in the state of Pennsylvania, is that right? Yes.
I should know the answer to that, Chris.
I'm saying yes.
I'm going to just take a guess. Yes, between 1 and 2 million visits per year.
And without, without FOW, I mean, this is really the jewel of the Philadelphia Park system. I'm a commissioner in Parks and Rec, and it's the highest visited park. So FOW does a fantastic job, and the guided walks and talks are just a wonderful outreach. So it's been so fun to do, and I'm looking forward to the winter ones coming up next.
Well, me too. Thank you so much, Chris. And I promise I will be there for your next year's Halloween hike. I won't do this.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Brad, for letting us barge into your thing, and all the TAs raising hands who showed up as the wild woman at Wissahickon. But there's way more to do than just haunt the historic sites. So guided walks and talks are a great opportunity.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. And we are going to move on. Oh, and before I do, I just want to give a shout out to our map app. If you don't have it, make sure you download it. It's available on the iOS App Store. If you have an Android, you can download it. There's still a few kinks being worked out. But among many other things, there are self-guided hikes that you can follow, including a hike of the historic Rittenhouse town, a geology walk and talk, and a watershed walk. And there's many more to come, including one that will be going to Hermit's Cave. And speaking of historic Rittenhouse town, we're just going to swing by here and say hello real quick. This was one of the locations that we've done a lot of work on Saturdays with crew leaders, taking part in historic Rittenhouse town's annual landscape week. This was also a trick or trash cleanup site. It's also very well tended by our partners at Historic Rittenhouse Town and Wissahickon Restoration volunteers. And I'd like to especially give a shout out to Paul at the Paper Trail Bike Cafe. Great place to get a great cup of coffee and pick up a Wissahickon cleanup kit. And then our next stop is Ridge Avenue, which I swear is under there somewhere. And this is just another opportunity to give a thank you to Parks and Rec staff who really sprung into action after that kind of apocalyptic hurricane that we had. And one other, not one other, like we had a lot of other volunteers that were taking part in the hurricane cleanup, but one of them were our corporate groups. This was actually kind of a banner year for FOW's corporate in-park service. We had 14 groups, which is the biggest year of corporate groups that we've ever had who provide a donation and volunteer power to the park. So I kind of like juxtaposing this with the picture of the guy scraping the mud, which is kind of challenging work, but something that we did with one of our corporate groups post-hurricane. That paved bike path often gets flooded and covered in mud. And so this year they were the lucky ones who got to scrape it out. But we are joined by another special guest, Darian Polk, who is a new board member and also coordinated 2 different service days with his company, Baker Tilly. Darian, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. I can't complain, Sean. Nice to see you again.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you so much for bringing not one but 2 different groups out to the park. So, how did that happen? How did your company decide to get involved with coming out to the Wissahickon?
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. But yeah, for the past 6 years, my firm Baker Tilly US has been engaged in service work known as Stewardship Week, and it typically takes place during August. So pretty much across the firm, leaders identify nonprofits local to each geographic market in which we operate, and we perform volunteer work for these organizations. This year, the Philly office, one of our initiatives was to aid in cleanup efforts across the city. So knowing my recent admission to the FOW board and the many opportunities to serve through FOW, I was approached by our regional managing partner to set up a few days of service to aid in the stewardship of the park. And that's pretty much how it came about. I love the park, so I was very happy to be able to introduce the park to other members within my community at the firm.
Awesome. Well, you guys did amazing work. And did everybody, so this is my question for the evening now, did everybody have a good time?
Yeah, everyone from the team enjoyed lending a hand, as well as learning more about FOW and, the park overall. Obviously well, not obviously the group here, but you led our group along with your team of cleanup guys. And, one thing that I remember from, just interacting with a few different groups before the day ended, during the day that I attended, some of the folks hadn't even been familiar with the park. So, it was very cool to hear about their experience there. And I remember specifically them just describing it as a hidden gem, and just pretty much noting that they would definitely be coming back, and we'll be looking for more ways to get involved.
Awesome. Yeah. I always make a point to tell people, if this is your first time, come back and go for a hike. You don't always have to come and clean up trash.
Yeah.
Come and enjoy it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Darian, for bringing your two awesome groups to the park, and thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah, no, not a problem. It's our pleasure. You know, we look forward to getting involved more in the future.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. And then our final stop is going to be at the confluence, where the beautiful Wissahickon Creek meets the Schuylkill. And this is kind of where, like sometimes trash and different debris wash up on the shore, so will our totals. So let's look at kind of how things shook out this year. So this year we had over 1,000 individual volunteers, over 8,200 volunteer hours, over 140 volunteer service days, over 13 tons of litter removed, which, you know, kind of makes you want to throw up, but hey, good job, guys. It's awesome. Over 1,000 native plants planted, over 6 miles of trails improved, over 50 down trees cleared, and over 4,200 square feet of invasive plants removed. So that is a lot of work. And of course, all of those, I've been saying it's over this because our year's not done yet. And once the year finally comes to a close, we will really get to close things out and see what our final totals are. But really, really impressive year. Amazing work by so many amazing people. And we're so grateful for everything that you guys have done in the park. But every year we like to honor somebody. Some years we honor several people. And this year we have chosen one person to be a volunteer of the year. So if I had a drum, I would do a drum roll, but I don't. So our volunteer of the year for 2021 is Dave Stamen, who many of you probably know, maybe you've worked with at service days. He is a crew leader. He joined the crew leader corps in 2020. And without fail, he attends pretty much every single Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday service day, and often is going out on his own to clean the trash in the park on his own. And this year he's done over 600 volunteer hours, hands down the most active volunteer that we've had this year. And we are very grateful to the amount of dedication and love that he shows to the park. There's a picture of him just a couple of weeks ago covering graffiti on trees with mud, which was a lot of fun. And he's basically open to anything that we had to throw at him. And he always shows up and is always has a smile on his face. So congratulations, Dave. Thank you so much for your amazing work. And thank you to everybody else. Thank you for joining us this evening. I realize everybody probably has Zoom fatigue. I'm not alone with that. So I'm hoping that maybe next year we'll be able to do this in person. But thank you again so much for the really impressive work that you guys have done this year. And I'm just kind of going to give a little pitch. We still have more service days left. We got a couple Saturdays, a couple weekdays, and we also have something really exciting planned for Martin Luther King Day this year. This was just confirmed. We're approved for a closure of Lincoln Drive from Wissahickon Avenue down to Ridge Avenue. So we are doing a huge cleanup along Lincoln Drive, which we've never done before. So if you've ever wanted to walk on Lincoln Drive without the risk of death, please come out and join us on that day. It's on our events page, sign up. We're also currently recruiting for next year's trail ambassadors and crew leaders. So you can read about that on our website as well. So I really want to wish everybody a safe and happy end of the year. And I look forward to passing the torch from this year to next year and doing awesome stuff with you. And I'm going to stop sharing because I want to finally see what people look like. There's all those faces that I actually had to, I'm sitting, in my apartment alone in silence, talking to my laptop, and I don't get to see all these beautiful faces. So this is my reward. I get to see you all now. So thank you all very, very much. You're all awesome. We love you, and we really, really look forward to working with you next year. So have a good night, everybody.